The View is live. Grilling Gorsuch, the president's choice for SCOTUS in the hot seat on the Hill. And did Trump just throw shade at him?
Somebody said I should not criticize judges. Okay, I'll criticize judges.
Plus, Rachel Maddow hits the table live to talk about taking on Trump on all fronts, from taxes to tweets to ties to Russia. And does the original love story have all the answers you need about your relationship? New York Times bestselling author Bruce Feiler on Adam, Eve, and Us. The View starts right now with Whoopi, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, and Jedediah Bila. Now, let's get things started.
Plenty of politics to talk about. We got a lot to talk about today, but that'll happen shortly. But we have to start with this. We walked out to the theme song of the wonderfully odd and strange and iconic Gong Show theme to acknowledge the passing of host and creator Chuck Barris, the man who also gave us the Newlywed Game, the dating game, and for those of you who remember, a song called Palisades Park. He was really a kind of an amazing guy, so that's why we walked out to his music today. So, also, you know, we're going to be talking to Rachel Maddow as well when she comes out, but we want to start, we're going to start with the president's Supreme Court pick, Neil Gorsuch, was grilled by the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday, where he shut down Democrats who tried to nail down his position on issues like abortion and gun rights. He said it would be improper to comment on how he'd rule on any case that comes into his court. Now, his supporters hail him as an independent thinker, and so the question is, was this a good pick?
Oh, I think it was a good pick because he's qualified for it. But I think they're asking the wrong questions. I mean, he is a judicial ideologue, so he has this ideology, and they're not able to get to it with the questions that they're asking him. So he's being very evasive, like most picks are, Supreme Court picks. I mean, I would have asked him something like, you know, he considers himself this constitutionalist, this originalist. If that's the case, the right to privacy isn't enumerated in the Constitution. Do you believe in the right to privacy? That would have gotten to the issue of whether or not he would be I think supportive of overturning Roe v. Wade. Yeah, so they're not asking the right questions.
But he did say on Roe v. Wade that he believes in precedents. And he says that that has been law for a long time, and it didn't sound like he would try to overturn it.
It didn't sound like that, but I still don't think they asked him the right questions. I mean, they haven't. He's very good at being evasive, and most of these Supreme Court nominees are very good.
Yeah, I kept waiting for him to get stuck because some of the questions that were coming in were, you know, trying to get him to pinpoint his position on this or that. And what I liked about it is that what I got from him is that his position and the way he feels about these things wasn't really important for this job in his perception. He said, I'm here to follow the law. The way I feel about something,
it's how he's going to interpret the law, though.
Right, that's true.
That's why his ideology is important.
But he wasn't alarming to me. He was balanced, he was measured, and I think coming from someone like Donald Trump, where you're always worried that he's going to sort of be doing this or that, or a little unhinged, frankly, in my opinion, this is a guy who's very balanced, measured, has a good comprehension of the law, and seems to know how to handle himself in these situations quite well. Which
I also was, go ahead.
Well, I just like the part where, building off what everyone's saying here, when they asked him if he had to stand up to someone, and they said, are you talking about President Trump? He said, anyone is anyone, and that was very clear to me what he meant by that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was, to me, bold.
And he was talking about the fact that, you know, President Trump has, I guess, criticized a lotot of federal judges, and he finds it
do that. Let me get to it. Yeah, go ahead.
For a second, because I liked him. He's very handsome, isn't he?
He's very good looking.
I mean, he's too sexy for his role.
Well, we're on really important things.
But I did like a lot of what he said. I thought he was amiable. He almost looked like he was going to cry any minute. He was a little angry here and there. But, you know, I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
But this one case that he ruled on, that Al Franken took him up on, was about a guy, a truck driver, who got stuck because his brakes got stuck. Now the brakes are stuck and he's freezing. He's in sub-zero temperatures. The guy calls ahead, come and get me. 3 hours later, no one comes to get him. He's freezing to death, the guy. And he basically abandons the truck and goes home. Now, this judge ruled, he gets fired. This Judge Gorsuch ruled for the company that fired him rather than for him.
He generally rules in favor of companies.
Of corporations.
And
but to me, that shows, like, yes, he's strict, blah, 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 and maybe he'll be good on Roe v. Wade because there's precedent. On the other hand, there's something lacking in the guy who doesn't rule for a man who could freeze to death. And Al Franken, Senator Franken, said, from Minnesota, the great Al Franken, he said, you know, I've dealt in absurdities in my previous career, and this is absurd.
Well, he's hiding behind the law because he's an ideologue.
But there's something about that that shows you something that's not, the heart is missing.
If you have a legal problem with the way he ruled on that legally, he said that the statute cited by the Department of Labor was not relevant. That was his justification. But if you have a legal problem saying, you know what, legally, this guy who was in this truck had his life in jeopardy. He claims that he was potentially going to suffer from hypothermia soon. That's a legal argument. That I can respect and maybe take issue with him. But if your argument is that he doesn't have enough empathy, that I have a problem with, because I don't want the person sitting in that. No, well, I think I agree with you that there may have been an issue there legally. Maybe I didn't agree with that decision he made from a legal front. But I don't care whether my Supreme Court justice is empathetic to this cause or that. I want them to look at the law, and I want them to be objective about the law, because otherwise you allow too much subjectivity of what you may be empathetic to, I may not be empathetic to.
There's a problem with that. You have to they have to have empathy, and here's why. If you have all guys, it is very hard to get them to understand why a woman's issue is important. Do you know what I mean? So you have to have some empathy. You have to be able to say, oh, okay, this will never be something I go through, but I understand this is something that's happening for you. And the other thing is, you know, the Supreme Court is there not for their personal beliefs, but to rule for us as a nation. And so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that that's what he does. Because, you know, I was worried when Roberts went in. I was worried when other people have gone in. And I've been surprised by them coming in ways that I didn't think that they would. So I just, you know, there's nothing you can do to stop the fact that they're going to put him in.
Right.
You know, well, that's it. No, they're not going to. There's
an argument about that.
Well, they have the votes.
You can have as many arguments as you want.
Sonny's argument.
Yes, Sonny has many arguments about many things.
I do.
But the bottom line is, we have seen that they've put Betsy DeVos in, and she was not qualified. We've seen that they've. Okay, I don't think this is going to be an issue for them.
No.
Now, you may think that somebody out of the blue is going to say, well, you know, we think it's
my argument is with Schumer.
Senator Schumer has said that because Trump is under investigation, that you should not put him in, because he may be in it.
And I think that's a very valid argument, though. It's a very valid argument.
It may be a very valid argument, but you are saying it to the people who are making the decisions.
But that's the thing. It's like, you know,
I'm sorry,
But if they rule that President Trump is an illegitimate president, then this guy is illegitimate too, according to that rule.
That's the argument, because if he is illegitimate, he's under FBI investigation. Why not hold off the vote? They held off the other vote that President Trump. They held off that vote.
So what your argument is,
he's under investigation.
He's under investigation, but you do realize that they use that very argument to sink Hillary Clinton. We are faced with a House, the Senate, everybody that is not voting anything that we're talking about. And I don't think until one of those people actually stands up and follows through and says, hey, you know, I don't like this thing you're doing. We'll see. You know when we'll know? We'll know when we find out who votes for this ridiculous health bill.
Exactly, because you have a president who appointed, who nominated, you know, this fine jurist. However, he is under FBI criminal investigation.
It's a very fair point, but we've been making these fair points for the last, how long has he been in?
Investigation last?
I feel like he's been in 25 years.
18 months.
I think it's fair. We'll be right back.
This week on Tell 'em, Whoopi.
Big hot topic.
And our political view is sizzling. He just faced the FBI's James Comey over his campaign's possible ties to Russia and his claims of wiretapping. Now, Representative Adam Schiff faces the women of The View.
Wait for that one.
And we're getting our funny on.
That's fun.
Because first, power couple Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard come to our house. Then, we're laughing it up with Anthony Anderson.
Damn, I should come here every day. That's right.
This week on The View on ABC. A happy relationship is asking, what would Adam and Eve do?
There's a protest going on at New York Museum over a painting called Open Casket, which portrays the body of Emmett Till, the black teen murdered by several people in 1955. The protest, which was started by a black artist, is because Dennis Schultz, the painter of Open Casket, is white. Now, the online petition claims it's not okay for a white person to use black suffering for fun and profit. It needs to be destroyed.
Why is it fun and profit, though? She's an artist.
I don't know, but I will say, you know, that for me, well, what she said is, you know, no, I'm not a black person, but I'm a mother, and I know that Emmett was this woman's only child, and so I'm painting from empathy. And so people calling for the destruction of art goes very, very hard for me, because the Nazis did that. The Nazis said, get rid of stuff that we don't like. Burn the book, do this.
They called it degenerate art.
Yes. So can you really say destroy art to people?
What's troubling to me is that she seems to take issue with the fact that it's a white artist. Well, Norman Rockwell painted such incredible moments in the civil rights division, civil rights, famous during the civil rights period.
It's called the problem we all live with.
Yeah, and he was white, and so I don't think that art or empathy is specific to a race. So that's offensive. And
also, go ahead.
It's also offensive that she says it's cultural appropriation. It seems like they don't really understand what cultural appropriation is. This is not cultural appropriation. This is, I think, trying to make sure that Emmett Till's mother's pain is America's pain and showing it through art.
Yeah, that's what you do. So everybody agrees. I mean,
of therapy. My self-esteem has never been in better shape.
So last week you obtained a copy of you know whose 2005 federal tax return. Something many Americans have sort of been demanding, just any tax return. What was the first thing that went through your mind when you knew you were going, when you knew you had it?
Use this one? Yeah. I think I'm using this microphone. Is that right?
Oh, okay.
Rachel travels with her own mic.
I travel.
It's like Miranda Lambert.
It's just to make me look important.
I guess this one's not working.
Oh, that's fine. Well, so honestly, the first thing I thought when we got this call, this reporter had obtained what he thought were these tax returns, my first thought was, don't get pranked. Like, could this be a forgery? Could this be some sort of, you know, like, make sure this stuff is real. Because obviously there's such appetite to learn about his tax returns. He's the only president in 40 years, so we don't have his financial information. And simultaneously with that, we've got this increasing knowledge about his weird overseas ties in terms of people on his campaign. So there's all this appetite for it. It's the perfect environment to prank somebody. And so I thought, let's make sure this is right. We gave a tentative yes, we will break it if we can prove that it is real. And then we spent 36 hours trying to get the White House to verify it was real. And then they finally did, and then we went to air.
Well, some speculate that Trump leaked those himself to distract from other negative things, and it wasn't that damning, the results. Like, so do you think that could have come from Trump?
It totally could have come from Trump, which is like such a bizarre human drama at the center of this. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that matters is that document real? That's the story. Because what we need to know is whether the president is conflicted, whether he's making policy decisions, whether he's making personnel decisions that aren't just for the good of the country, that might be benefiting him or benefiting somebody he owes money to. That's why we need to see that stuff.
Well, we know he gave them to you because otherwise there would be more pages with real information on them. There's only 2 pages.
Well, what is interesting is that Donald himself tweeted that releasing the taxes was fake news, and his son Donald Jr. tweeted this: "Thank you, Rachel Maddow, for proving to your Trump-hating followers how successful at real Donald Trump is, and that he paid $40 million in taxes, #taxes." So did this actually end up making him look this and, you know, everything else a witch hunt?
My favorite thing about those two things together is like, okay, it's an amazing release of his tax information that shows that he's super rich and paid a ton of money in taxes. It's real and great. Also, it's fake and it's illegal for you to publish them. Like, I'm happy to absorb either one of those punishments from the family, but both of them, it's either fake or it's real, and you guys have to pick one.
Hasn't he
use that to attack me.
Hasn't he been saying for the past, I don't know how many years we know he's around, that he's a billionaire? That's not, that's $150 million. That's far.
That was his income that year. So
but also that money, that tax that he paid was because he sold that building or whatever it was to China. That's Chinese money, supposedly. Now, I did not do his tax return, so I do not know. But I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff.
We know very, very little about his finances. I think one of the things that seems important to me about getting that little piece of it is that, A, it proves that you can release some of his tax information without the world ending. He's had weird excuses for not releasing his taxes.
Well, he's
under audit. Well, every president has been under audit
what do you think
since
he's afraid
Nixon,
of?
and they've all released their tax returns.
So what's he afraid of, Rachel?
I don't know. So why doesn't he release it?
Yeah.
Because the explanation for why he won't doesn't make sense. We've now seen with me releasing these 2 pages that you can release it and it's not even necessarily bad news. Why are you so afraid?
Because he didn't give you the pages that really would tell you anything, and the tax returns that you would get would indict him with the influence in Russia. Well, that's why.
We'll see.
There's no other reason.
The thing is that if the White House continues to insist that there's nothing in the tax returns that's going to make him look bad at all, and there's nothing to this Russia story, well, prove it. Show it.
Rachel doesn't do it.
I want to get to the rollout a little bit because you took a lot of heat. I was watching social media, and some gave you a lot of heat that you drew it out. In other words, that you initially teased the segment, and then they had to wait a long time, and then by the time it had hit, other news outlets were potentially on it. So what do you say to that, to people who felt that the rollout didn't help your show or maybe wasn't handled correctly?
Well, for me, the most important thing here, as I said, was figuring out if this document was real. And then in terms of breaking the news, I felt like my responsibility was to show the information, to be transparent about where we got it from, to talk about some of these issues in terms of the sourcing issues. We honestly have no idea where it came from. It very well might have come from the president himself. But the overall issue being the importance of the president releasing his tax returns, why it's so unusual that he hasn't, why therefore even getting this little piece of information is a big deal. So for me, that's what I felt like I had to do. And I did it, and you like me or don't, I did it right as far as I'm concerned. So
why is this particular year important? 2005. Why would that be the one? If they
released it themselves to make themselves look good? I mean, we don't know. We have to see the other years in order to know, but there are some interesting things about 2005 that make it potentially a unique year in his taxes. Number one, that was his first joint filing with Melania. They had never filed together before. She was not yet...
She made all the money. That jewelry's fabulous.
She was not yet a citizen at that point. She underwent her citizenship interview the following year, and one of the things
what year was that?
2006 is when she became a citizen. So 2005 is when they filed this tax return. And if you go to U.S. Customs and Immigration, they tell you when you're coming in for your citizenship interview, make sure you bring all your tax returns. So it was very important to them, having just become a married couple, that those tax returns for 2005 look... right? Because it's part of her citizenship application at that point. So that's one thing. There's also the other interesting thing going on in the president's life at that point is that somebody had published a biography that year that said he wasn't a billionaire at all. He didn't have nearly that much money. It's all a joke. And Trump was enraged by that. He filed a $2 billion lawsuit against the author of this book against him. And so he might have been feeling a little sensitive about showing that he had a lot of income.
But he proved that he wasn't a billionaire by showing the tax.
He made $150 million on his tax, but it doesn't mean he didn't have more sitting in the bank. We have no idea what he's worth.
2006.
2006. I feel like I've piqued your interest.
Well, you have because you know when we were asking the questions, when when did citizenship happen? You know, how quickly did it happen? You know, so
It happened after the marriage.
It happened after the marriage.
She was, I mean, she was a green card holder. She was legally allowed to work here and make income. She was paying taxes. They filed jointly. It's all, I mean, there's no reason to be, as far as I can see, we've seen no evidence of anything that looks suspicious in that regard. But if you are wondering why 2005 might be a cherry-picked year that looked particularly shiny for them, then that's potential, that's circumstantial evidence.
I'll just ask him. We're going to go and come right back with more with Rachel Maddow. So James Comey told us earlier this week that the FBI is investigating Russia's involvement in the election. Ooh! And this morning we're learning that Paul Manafort, to a surprise, Trump's former campaign manager, worked for Russia for a Russian billionaire to help Putin.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Well, you
tell us why this is a big deal.
So this broke this morning, just around 9 o'clock Eastern. The AP broke this story, and the funny thing that's happening, you can watch the White House freaking out about it. They're like, Paul who? He played a very limited, we don't even have his number. He ran the campaign. He got Donald Trump the Republican presidential nomination, and there's always been this weird question, well, where did this guy come from? Like, he's not like...
Russia.
He's not like a big mainstream player in Republican politics. How did he end up being the campaign manager? And now the more we find out about him, the more his links to Russia are a little scary, honestly. And what the AP reported this morning is that in 2006, he basically entered into a business relationship, a $10 million a year business relationship with one of the billionaires in Russia who's closest to Putin. And what he agreed to do was promote Putin's policies in the United States covertly, without registering as a foreign agent. And he was doing that for $10 million a year secretly in this country. And then magically somebody suggested him to Trump as a good campaign manager.
Which is, and he was his campaign manager through the RNC, right? Through the...
Eventually he had got fired because of his ties to Russia.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
So the same thing that got him in kicked him out.
Well, yeah, I mean, it got a little... Now for them to be saying, oh, he played a very minor role in the campaign. He was only there for a minute.
He was barely here, people.
Exactly. We can't even spell Paul. So I don't...
That might be too close.
So we'll see. There remains some interesting threads to pull here. I mean, the FBI has a counterintelligence investigation open into the president's campaign.
Do you trust Comey, by the way?
We don't have the luxury to trust him or not. He's the only FBI director we've got.
Well, I said yesterday that I thought they needed an independent investigator here because Comey, when he was investigating Hillary's emails last summer, that was the big brouhaha. At the same time, we now know he was investigating the Russian connections to Trump, and yet we never heard about that. I don't trust him. Do you?
It is weird to look back at the campaign and know that the FBI had a counterintelligence investigation into one of the campaigns for 4 months that they didn't mention until and didn't mention for months after America voted on it.
It's really outrageous.
And so, I mean, the calls for special prosecutor are resounding and getting louder, in part because of the FBI, but in part because the congressional investigations are led by two guys who were part of the Trump campaign. So if the investigation is into the Trump campaign,
it's so partisan that it can't be
on the campaign as a transition official. Burr was also on the campaign, who's leading the Senate.
They're talking about that. This is what I said. They actually have to come here to get some impartial people. they need to, this is how far away they have to get to find someone impartially to do the right work that we would be telling people to do if we were doing this with another country. We would be telling them exactly what to do. But we're not doing it. Go ahead, Jen.
Alternate reality.
Yesterday, we had Gorsuch, the Supreme Court nominee, go in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and you have Chuck Schumer saying that essentially he shouldn't be confirmed right now because you have Donald Trump under FBI investigation. Does that argument hold? I have a sense that Republicans would make that same argument if the shoe were on the other foot and Hillary Clinton were in there under FBI investigation.
Yeah, I mean, you think the elephant in the room here and the Gorsuch nomination is that President Obama nominated Merrick Garland for that seat while he still had a year in office. And the Republican objection to even meeting with him, let alone holding a hearing, was President Obama's only going to be president for another year. And so we've invented a new rule, which means you then don't get to appoint a Supreme Court justice. The Democrats' conceivable objection to Gorsuch is, listen, nothing about you personally, sir, but our FBI is now investigating not just like whether you evaded taxes or whether you're corrupt in some personal way, whether or not you and your campaign colluded with a foreign power in their attack on the United States.
Right.
And in that environment, it's weird to let that person make a lifelong appointment to the Supreme Court.
I like Gorsuch. I'm a right-wing girl, and I think that's a legitimate argument to be made that Joy made today. That I mean, I don't understand how you can justify having this investigation go on with the commander-in-chief and at the same time have this nominee go through. I think it's a legitimate argument, and if Democrats are smart, I think they should make it.
That's it. It could be, but you know, when you are faced with a brick wall that says we're making the decisions, you got to pee louder, scream louder, got to fight it. But I don't see
there's an argument to be made that the Democrats should get up out of that hearing room and say, you know what, we're not doing this.
Right.
You go. You have your votes if you want. We're filibustering it. We're done. You can do this.
Yes.
We're not.
That's what needs. People need to get up. They just need to get. People need to do something. You know, and it's not just stuff. You got to get up.
Sometimes you just got to walk out, right?
Well, yeah. You know what? We look. Come back anytime. Come back and play with us. We would love that. Rachel Maddow, we love you. You can check out Rachel Maddow's show weeknights. Check your local listings for times, and if we're lucky, we'll be right back.
Are Adam and Eve one of history's most successful couples you can still learn from? And did Eve get a bad rap? New York Times bestselling author Bruce Feiler has some enlightening hot topics next. So does a cold one help you warm up?
Men need booze in order to be social.
Girls do that.
A proper cocktail can open up the floodgates.
Girl! Enjoy.
I need booze to get through the news every night.
Cheers to the
relationship work. Was Eve the original badass? New York Times best-selling author Bruce Feiler makes a case for both these in his latest book, The First Love Story, Adam and Eve and Us. Please welcome Bruce Feiler.
So Bruce, in your new book, The First Love Story, you say Eve has been the victim of the biggest character assassination in the history of the world, I guess, for eating that apple. What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, it's a real honor to be here. Thank you very much. So I spend a lot of time around tables like this, okay? I have a working wife. I have adolescent twin daughters, and we talk about what everybody talks about, which is the changing way men and women relate to each other. And it's all about science and the new technology, but I keep thinking there must be something from the past that's worth preserving. So a few years ago, we're in the Sistine Chapel, and we look up, and my girls look at Adam and Eve on the ceiling, and I realize, oh my gosh, this story has been at the heart of every conversation about men, women, and sex for 3,000 years. What can it teach us? And when you go back and look at the story, it turns out there's equality. Eve takes initiative. Adam takes initiative. There's forgiveness. There's togetherness. It's an inspiring story. What happened? Organized religion got a hold of the story. They used it to dump on women. Okay, so Eve is victim. She's a scapegoat. In the story, she's the first. She's the first to lean in. But that's seeking of wisdom. That's an act. It's the tree of knowledge. She wants wisdom. It's an act of autonomy, actually. And then she shares it with Adam and Eve too. So
she's a feminist.
She's the first to lean in. I really think that. And I think that
I named my daughter after her.
And my daughter's named Eden. One of my girls is named Eden. But here's why I think why this matters is because now women need this story. Men and women need this story. Why people are rallying around this book is because now women are saying we want to claim our spirituality back from the men who've had it all these years.
Well, you know, there's always this big fight going on between science and art, and science and religion, rather. Not art, religion. So you say that the two can actually cohabit. How?
Well, I think that we've pitted these two against each other, and that's a shame, okay? So I grew up in the Deep South, surrounded by religion, but I spend time on the internet, right? I tweet, but I Talmud too. And let's just say positive psychology. I've written a lot about happiness. What's the #1 thing that we've learned? Happiness is relationships, whether it's friends or family or our lovers, okay? What's the biggest antidote to that? Loneliness. There's a crisis of loneliness. Young people, middle-aged men, older people. What's the first thing God says? to humans in the Bible. It's not right for humans to be alone.
Yes.
The Bible got there 3,000 years before modern science. So to me, rather than saying, oh, science has all the answers, forget the past, or the Bible has all the answers, forget the present, to me, when they're talking to each other and when they agree, then there's truth.
The problem comes when you talk about evolution versus creationism. It's not about these things that you're discussing. It's more about when did we start.
So here's how I look at religion as someone who's spent a lot of time in this over 20 years. There's about 15% of Americans that are evangelical believers. There's about 15% that are evangelical non-believers. That leaves about three-quarters of us in the middle who we want spirituality, but we have doubt. We want to pass on values to our children, but we have questions. That turns out to be who I'm talking to, and it's the same way with relationships, okay? It's not all timely wisdom. There's timeless wisdom too, and so essentially what I'm saying in the first love story is, if you want to deepen and strengthen your relationship, if you have questions, if family's important to you, come on this great Adam and Eve journey with me from the Garden of Eden to Jerusalem to Rome to Hollywood. And you're going to be surprised. You're going to learn something, but in the end, I think you'll be uplifted because our original story is a success, not a failure.
Well,
there's hope.
There you go.
There's hope.
Our thanks to Bruce Phillips. His book, The First Love Story, is available now. And guess what, y'all? Yeah, you're all going home with a copy.